Hello, welcome to this session titled Space and Architecture Inside the Track Natures and Words. This session includes two papers. First, Joana Resende Pedro, Angelo, and Mónica Mendes will present View from Above, Drone Art and Hacktivism for Landscape Transformation Awareness, that reflects on how drones are getting inserted into our everyday life. The second paper, presented by Robert Lizac and Carolina Kotnoris, is titled Evolutionary Strategies in Architecture and Art, which proposes a new strategy for creating evolving architectural structures. A big thank you to the authors for sharing such interesting projects, and thank you everyone for coming. So let's enjoy the presentations.
This project is the result of a theoretical and practical research that is based on the capture of aerial images, on the capturing machines, such as drones and satellites, and what the images themselves represent. We want to raise questions as artists, asking how we can hack this relationship of power that is intrinsic to aerial images and the way we perceive them. With this practice, we intend not only to define positions but to question how we can reverse this gaze for the good of the community. Drone, or UAV, unmanned aerial vehicle, can be divided into several classes. Military drones are relatively recent examples of flying machines used for modern warfare. They have the ability to travel to enemy lines, capture images, and gather field information while carrying weapons to be fired at targets. They demonstrate the technical prowess of one army over another. Whoever can see the other from above has more information about the opponent, and more information means more power. But they are also being used outside of the battlefields by the authorities as a form of population control and policing, and also in their integration into society, because drones have become entertainment machines, a new means of capturing images that impress in the news, in movies, in advertising, and in social networks, making the normalization of these machines in everyday life grow. Satellites. There are other aerial image capture devices that are out of our visual range and that capture images of the Earth all the time. These images are used for a variety of purposes, from communications, astronomy, meteorology, and so on. Recently, the images collected from satellites are also used in the creation of digital maps with which we interact almost daily in applications. Thus, we can say that both images captured by drones and satellites are increasingly inserted in our daily lives, whether in news, movies, and forms of entertainment, and even as a way to promote businesses such as those linked to real estate. But what can this exposure to aerial imagery do to the way we see and perceive the world? One of the problems with satellite images is that they are made by machines and to be interpreted by machines, as Arun Faroki warned. Digital maps today are aerial images that do not depict stable terrain. They instead create an assumption of what is there. The satellite images that we later see applied to digital maps, as in the case of Google Maps, are that result from the collage of various image clippings through the use of artificial intelligence. Our research for aerial images began with the need to capture images parallel to the ground at a distance where we could find references to borders that are normally invisible to our eyes, either by our own anatomical limitations or by geographical issues of this same space, among others. We started by using do-it-yourself or DIY ways to make these captures and got references from the Public Lab platform, publiclab.org. These ways of creating our own machines or creating tools by reusing machines and using community ways of having and giving access to knowledge is very important. Not only as a way to create art projects reusing materials, but also reusing information, adapting it to our projects, but especially as a way of blurring the boundaries of knowledge itself, like a hacker. We use as much open source software as possible, and a learning path was taken to use a drone safely. In view from above, we try to find out what the area we live in is like and what changes have been made to the landscape that we normally can't see or that our perspective doesn't allow us to see. We chose a specific area close to the Portuguese capital, Lisbon. It is both one of the areas where houses are more expensive, classified as an area of luxury houses, and where the Sintra Cascais Natural Park is located, which is a protected territory given its fauna and flora area. In the use of images that we can access through satellites, we are able to see some changes that have been made in that area. We can also see the differences in vegetation within the chosen area and the surrounding areas. We can see that the areas where the houses are more expensive have more green areas than in the cheaper areas. Still, the original forestation is being replaced by landscape decorations. Another conclusion we came to is that when we intend to gather more information about a specific area, we don't have the same openness to access information even when we ask the people or municipalities. After the satellite research, we decided to again go physically into the field and try to capture our own aerial images while being able to understand for ourselves how drones work and how we can subvert them to the good of the community. We start by using a very simple model where you don't need any permission from the authorities to use. In the scope of models with no need of permission from the authorities, we then move on to a more sophisticated model that needs some learning. And even though it has 450 grams, it can cause accidents and damage to people, animals, and property. And there are also some meteorological events that can alter the drone's operation, such as rain, wind, and areas with trees that cause the GPS signal to fail, among others. By working with the drone, we wanted not only to understand its functioning, but also to understand the relationship between the human and the machine, and the forms of power that are linked to surveillance. In parallel, some workshops were done, such as an artistic residence located in a small village in the countryside, in the eastern north of Portugal, Massal do Chão, where we had more freedom to practice and use the drone away from the population and where we could see the perspective of the drone in relation to the landscape. Another artistic creation we did in this research process was the record of a performance art. I see the drone and the drone sees me. A metaphor for the post-panoptic relationship we live in today, which translates into a relationship of hypervisuality with surveillance systems, be they physical or digital, in which we explore the human-machine relation as a form of visuality and counter-visuality. By pointing his finger at the drone, the subject under observation breaks this unidirectional relationship of the surveillance power. Questioning who is behind the drone, that is, on the ground, in the same line as the watched person, who receives images captured by the drone. But what is done with these images? View from above. At the end of all these experiments, we wanted to create a cartography so that the area of the zone could be exposed and create a narrative that tells the changes of the area in question, and that could somehow create curiosity in the audience in order for us to question the very zone in which we live. To reinforce the idea of verticality between the ground, the aerial camera and the ubiquitous position that manifests itself in the aerial images and in its own capture, we wanted the public to be able to stand and walk on the cartography and vertically visualize the images captured in the same way we can see when the drone is capturing images and sending those same images to the control we hold in our hands. Additionally, we make use of augmented reality for the public to fly over that cartography where it is located and is then enabled to visualize overimposed animations displaying the course of the changes that have been manifested in the area we have investigated. In the artistic spectrum, the public enters, touches, and interacts with the work, leaving aside the horizontal look that is traditional when visiting museums, galleries, etc. With this approach, in this project we also want to hack the artistic code and to underline that the artist can be an intervener in the devastation of nature and can have a voice in the community.